All right, everyone, welcome back to the channel. Nice to see everyone. As always, we are just interviewing different competitors and CEOs and tons and tons of people for the channel. Today, we actually have a prior winner, Paul, who was actually a winner for our long only competitions, one of our first, and was up on the leaderboard a lot and reached out to us and kind of said, "Hey, thanks for putting on these competitions." And I thought it'd be a good time to circle back and see how Paul is doing there with his journey. Now, without further ado, I'll just pop right into it. So, hello again.
Hey,
How are things?
hey, Michael, how are you?
Now let's just pick off because I sorry I cut Paul off there because we already got to talking about the challenge, and then I had to cut him off because I wanted to save it for the podcast, and now we're back to it. So you were saying that last we spoke to you, there was a long only challenge, and you were the winner of that long only challenge. And I think in that we talked about, hey, are you going to compete in the next one, which we knew at the time was short only? And you did, and you said you struggled a little bit there, but you were happy that we brought back the short only challenge because you had kind of learned some things throughout the way, and you implemented some new styles and some maybe some new strategies. So can you talk a little bit about that? What you learned from the first long only challenge it didn't go so well, and then applying that to the second one where you did much better, and we'll talk a little bit about your results when you're done there.
Right, yeah. So the long only challenge, I did well. I mean, that's the one I won. And then
Hmm.
we had the short only. And for the first 2 days, I was up there in the top 10. But then third day, I just got wiped out. It just didn't work out. So, just like anything, as a trader, you're always evolving, you're learning, you never stop, right? So that's with me. I'm always enhancing my tools. So every time we have this competitions or anything, even if I have a bad trade, I try to learn from it and then try to fix that. So that's been my model. So I put something, I enhance my system. So I was waiting for just go off for a second here. I'm
Yep.
mainly a futures trader, so most of the time I trade futures. So these are the opportunities when I want to really get into the stocks. I mean, 3 days, all I do is stocks. So my experience with stocks is, I won't say it's all that there. It's quite limited, but everything that I learned in futures helps me with the stocks too. So anyway, the new model, I was excited to try that out, and that worked. The first 2 days I was there, I think all the 3 days I think I was in the top 10 list. Um,
Yep.
what I really liked about this, I mean, competition and real trading is two different things, right? I mean,
Hmm.
so in competition, you're really pushing a limit. But what I liked was the this particular competition, I had 100% win rate. So every stock that I sold actually turned into profit. So I was very happy with that until 3:30 third day, when I knew, of course, I'm not going to win because the leader was like, I think 25,000 or something
Yep.
ahead of me. So I decided to take some gamble, take extra risk. That didn't work, and of course, I think that ate into my profit. So, but until then, I was having like a 100% win rate. So that is what I was really excited about.
Yeah, and it was very interesting because I was watching when we do this live stream at the end of the competition. I was watching that very thing, and I remember mentioning in the live stream, it's like, hey, we have a lot of repeat people. We have some new, and that's a lot because it's expanding each time, and there's more people trying it. But we have some repeat people in here, and it was interesting to see you there. And I think I remember. So you ended up. I'm just looking at the board here. You ended up eighth with a 60% return for 3 days, which was still phenomenal. But yeah, that top leaderboard was very tight for a long period of time, and then like as you mentioned, you kind of have to. You're coming to the end of a competition. You kind of have to take some wild swings.
Mhm.
Now, without getting into the nitty gritty and the details of what it is you're doing, what was kind of the big takeaway that you had from you mentioned that you build systems, you tweak systems, you do that kind of thing. From winning the long only to competing in the short only, was it that you tried to flip the system? You tried to do to the short side what you're doing to the long? Is it a reconstruction of entirely new strategies? Like, just how do you approach the, I usually do this, and now I need to build a new strategy to do this? Like, tweaking, or is it
Right.
just complete rebuild from scratch?
No, it's I would say it's similar concept. So, my model or my method is basically I take feeds from trade ideas,
Hmm.
but I don't necessarily follow the buy and the sell signal. So if it says short, I'm not really shorting. I take the raw feed and then I apply into my system. And so for longs and short, I look for different, let's say, characteristics that tells me it's going to go down or it's going to go up. So it's not just it's not like an opposite, equally opposite system. It's just the characteristics are totally different. So I look for them, and again, like I said, what I really liked was the system worked great because I would short and my system will say get out. And when I get out, the market will go up. So I was very happy. I mean, the timing also. I mean, if you can do like some kind of regression analysis, you would see my timing was also getting in and getting out was like perfect. So that is what I was really excited about.
And that was the perfect answer, because that's actually what I wanted to highlight to a lot of people, is that um, there is uh, there's a misconception out there that I think that the long side of the market and the short side of the market look similar, right? And if all of a sudden, if you're just buying breakouts to the long side and that's working for you, people will just instantly say, okay, well, I'm just going to start doing the same thing to the short side, and they realize that doesn't work very quickly. Like you mentioned, I think it was a good word for it, is the characteristic, right? The old saying is the staircase up and the elevator down. Usually, when it comes to shorting the markets, thing kind of happen quickly and directly, as we're kind of seeing. Not to date the podcast too much, but the market today is definitely taking that elevator down instead of a staircase this time. It's a pretty precipitous sell off. So when you mentioned that you were taking the trade ideas, the scans from it, what exactly was your scanners kind of looking like? Again, you don't give out all the examples, but are you playing the stuff that's in play that day? Are you looking for purely technical
Yeah.
setups, or how does that look like?
So one challenge I've had with the trade ideas, and I mean, like I've said, trade idea software is great, but my system, I don't have any of the normal elements that if we look at, like, I don't have a candlestick, I don't look at the time frame. I have built my own custom elements. It's multi-time frame,
Hmm.
so it's not looking for one particular time frame. So to create the exact system in trade ideas, I struggled a little bit, so I had to come up with something that will come closer. So again, I would look for most active stocks that day. I mean, what was in play, and
Yeah.
then so I would take that as the raw data and then put it into my system. So both helps because I think I mentioned this when we interviewed last time. I created a system once without trade ideas data. I was trying to data mine the entire stock system and see if I could produce a system. But what would happen was my model was saying, okay, these are stocks that's about to go up, but they won't go up because there's not enough volume. So what you guys have got is like a perfect combination where what is active. So it's easy for me to just take that and just play with that.
Yeah, and I love that. So, we're talking from the difference between, I don't know, algorithmic or at least systematic to some degree on futures, where there's not a whole lot of instruments to trade, right? For liquid futures contracts, especially for day trading, you're certainly limited on what you can do. So creating models for that is great, but like as you mentioned, applying that model to just any stock randomly, regardless of the system, isn't really going to work out too well, especially from the day trading side of things, because what's going to happen is that you're going to have this issue in which that most stocks most days aren't doing anything, right? There's no
Yeah.
there's nothing interesting when it comes to new catalysts or information or anything like that. So yeah, most of the time, you're having really boring environments when it comes to the market, and this is one thing that we try to pretty heavily encourage with our users, where people say, "Oh, well, I just trade Nvidia every day." It's like, okay, well, that's all well and good, but basically what you're doing if you're trading Nvidia all day, I would argue, is kind of the same as what you're doing from the futures market. Because Nvidia, if you looked at the correlation between Nvidia and like the Qs, there it's going to be very, very, very close. So, having to filter your system by saying, okay, but get me, I need to be in the thing that's actually got a chance to move. I think is a great addition to that. Now, other than adding that idea in, other than adding the stocks in play or stocks that are in the news into your system, was there any tweaking? And I'm kind of thinking too, because futures, 24/5, except for that 1 hour close that happens. Do
Hmm.
you incorporate? Did you have to kind of change it for tick size versus pennies? Like there's a lot of like little subtle kind of market differences between futures and
Right.
stocks.
So, so one thing that helped me in with trading futures is the sniper accuracy approach that you have to have in futures. You can't just buy futures like you do in stocks, because the margin would it'll kill you.
Hmm.
Also, a small move in futures is like thousands and thousands of dollars, right?
Yes.
So yeah, so you have to have that sniper approach to trading futures. So I think that's helped me in with trading stocks too, where I when I know a stock is about to break out, I get in, and I'm not just sitting around. When it's time, I get out. I don't look at it. So to me, if you ask me what I traded that day, I won't remember, because it's just for that moment. I see it, I get in, I get out. Same thing when I was shorting. I would see a opportunity to short, I would short. And if one of my systems said, take profit, I would take profit. And it was very surprising to see after that the market would go up. And I was like, thank God I took the profit. Um, so again, going back to that, where sometimes, when you're building system, I worked as a product manager many years. So when you build system, in your mind, everything works great, right?
Yes.
So it was a learning curve to build this model where, stocks are supposed to take off, but it's not moving because nobody's buying. Everything is cleared, but nobody wants it. So those things where you learn by doing and actually trading and experimenting and building things. Yeah.
And I love this. I geek out because I'm a systematic trader myself, so I do love this kind of stuff. Now, um, I think I'm already going to know the answer to this because you mentioned you wouldn't even know the names of the stocks. Any fundamental filters in the system at all, or is it just purely stocks in play, and then I'm looking at price action, technical kind of stuff?
For many years, I used to follow Elliott Wave, and it's like etched in my mind. I've
Hmm.
you know really studied patterns and Elliott Wave. One thing I learned from it is, you know, I look at news and fundamentals as catalyst, not really into the data. There was even a study done by PhD students that said that 25%, only 25% of the time, news actually moves market, even though everybody believes that. I have seen the opposite. So what I learned from my system is that, I see a sell signal, it doesn't happen, but when that catalyst happens, like today, there was unemployment, and those catalysts happens, it triggers. I don't know how to explain it, except that I have seen it over and over and over. um, Yeah, so I don't really follow the contents of the news, but I keep an eye on the catalyst, the timing. When is something going to happen?
So when you mean when something is, are you talking macro events or are you talking stock specific news? Like when you say when something's going to happen, are you going to say, okay, well, earnings is happening at this time, so I'm going to watch it
Right.
then? Or is it just kind of when, JOLTS numbers or CPI or whatever that kind of stuff comes out?
Both. For stocks, if there is earnings or anything like that comes up, I would keep an eye on the time when they are going to release that. Again, take the Nvidia as the best example. I mean, they had great reports and earnings, but stocks went down because it was just time for it to go down.
Hmm.
um, I don't want to share it, but maybe another time privately I can show you my systems where it'll say sell, and some news like today unemployment or something will happen, and then it'll trigger. There, here's something I'll tell you. Futures, I actually place my trades before the news, like 1 or 2 minutes before before the news, because I kind of knew which side the market is going to go. I can even show it to you live. It's amazing. So I lean more towards the system and the technology than the fundamentals. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to do it because I think your NVIDIA example is a good one in which if someone was just in a complete void looking at what Nvidia's fundamentals were, you'd say, okay, this is an absolutely fine report, nothing really noteworthy. I think they were right on target to kind of what everyone was thinking. So, and they maybe even a little better. But then, yeah, the stock sold off and over the next handful of days. And because you have to plan, the market is almost just looking for an excuse at that point, right?
Yeah.
It's saying,
Exactly.
okay, this thing is up so much, and even before that report, it had already started to turn down, and so kind of the
Hmm.
vibes or the sentiment had already shifted. So yeah, it's like sometimes these news events, this is why I'm one where I don't really focus too hard on it, where because you're right, the trend seems to already tell you maybe a little bit in advance what's going to happen,
Hmm.
because that's the people who are positioning based off of what's occurred. Now, uh, we talked about how you take the whole stock universe and you're filtering it into your system by kind of what's in play. Does it ever get to a point where there is too many symbols to watch? And then do you have to pare them down from there? Or is it usually you're able to watch, like I see you got, a cool setup behind you, but, say there's, 50 names or plus that day that are really in play. There's a lot of earnings that happened or whatever is occurring. If you're given a big list, how do you filter? Do you sort by like
Yeah.
some number and that's what you're looking at, or?
So I sort them, but one of the things that I mainly focus is on. I have a tool that kind of predicts how far the stock will move, so a percentage move. So
Mhm.
basically, I'm sorting it by potential percentage move. So I always go after the biggest move, of course.
So it's kind of like sorting by, I guess, potential opportunity costs, right? You're
Right.
okay
Exactly.
with this stock, I believe, has the biggest potential to move the furthest and have the biggest percentage return. So that's going to be my focus, even if, this one may work as well. I just don't think it's going to work as well, right? It's not going to work as much in that direction.
Exactly. Yes.
That's very interesting. So, now that we're just, I guess, talking about systems building and all that, is there any resources that people should start to explore? So, say there's someone like you where they're trying to get into a little bit more of the, you know, algorithmic or quantitative or systematic trading. I've heard it called kind of all of those things, and they want to get a little bit away from the more discretionary approach in which people are just looking at a chart and trying to predict what's happening next. Because again, I'm talking my book here because as a systematic trader, I believe that allowing some systematic trading into, even if there's some discretion layered throughout, entries and exits systematic, and then stock selection maybe not, or whatever it ends up being. That's I believe that there's a very good benefit of doing that. So, kind of pretend that you're just getting started, and you're just getting started and you want to focus on stocks, because that's mainly what we focus on at Trade Ideas. Like resources, books, podcasts, anything that you would suggest people take a look at, or just start playing.
Unfortunately, not really, because everything I learned from resources never really worked for me. I mean, even like I told you, I've built proprietary indicators and
Hmm.
elements. And not really. I mean, I don't even look at the chart. I mean, like a candlestick, because if it works for you, great. But none of these things worked for me. Everything that's out there never really worked for me. Maybe some of them did. Um, for the longest time, even. I mean, everybody starts with moving average crossover, right? I mean, and then you realize, okay, by the time it crosses, it's too late. So,
Yeah.
so you know, it's just you. I mean, there's no shortcut to this. You just have to, and everybody's different, right? We all are wired so differently.
Hmm.
And so, if something works for you, stick to it. The rest, just move on very fast, because the more you can unlearn from everything that you've been taught and just figure out on your own, that's the best. I mean, that's what I would say. Because we are all different. I mean, I've built some systems and I've shared with my friends, but they can't use it, because the funny thing I've noticed is very hard, and I think about this every day, because the best tools tells you where the market is going, or it's in line with the market, but it has the same problem for people to use it, because everybody comes up with their preconceived notion. Everybody thinks, okay, like you said, okay, market is going to go up because they're going to cut the interest rate, or it's going to crash because they're going to cut interest rate,
Hmm.
whatever it is. So when the market and tool aligns and shows you, if your mindset is totally different, then you don't take that trade, and then you struggle with it. So I'm just telling you what really happened. I share it with my friends, but they can't use it, because I built this for me. I look at it, I know exactly. I mean, especially when we are doing the competition, the stocks competition, I you know I punch in this the ticker, the symbol. I have 2 seconds to take a decision, whether to buy or sell or don't do anything. I mean, in 2 seconds, I can make the decision. So I've got my system to that level, because I built it for me.
Hmm. And that I could not again, this is I could not have said it better. And I think it's absolutely amazing. You said exactly what I was going to say, or try to prompt you to get to, and hope that you say, because you're right. There's different systems have different risk tolerances and drawdowns and things like this, and you have to be okay with that. Because what we've noticed is that people who just try to adopt another system, even something I could prove to you with 40 years of data, that I've got some systems that are swing trading, and I've back tested them to 1980, and they outperform the market and they do well and whatever. But like anything, nothing ever works all the time. So you hand that to someone, and maybe they have a good couple weeks with the system, and then the system just goes through a natural drawdown that all systems do at some point. And what we've noticed is people just immediately abandon it on maybe the second or third red day, and then they're into something else, and they're constantly chasing this thing. Where if you build the system yourself as you're constructing it, you're saying, in this market environment it does well, in this market environment does poorly. And when I'm running my system, I can look at it and I can say, well, it's just not going to work very well right now. That's okay. You're making sure things are within your acceptable risk. And then the reason I say your acceptable risk, because that's different for everybody, right? There's some people out there
Yeah,
who, the slightest downtick in their equity, and they can't deal with it. And then there's some people that will build systems that will draw down 30-40% and be totally okay with that, because they know over the long run it will do fantastic. So yeah, it's very much um, it's very much a personal process. You need to know every part of it to kind of make sense. Now you
yeah.
mentioned that,
To
right?
do
Sorry, go ahead.
right. To answer your question, like anything I can suggest to anybody getting new to this, it's just you have to go through the process, test everything, but if figure out if it works or not. If it doesn't, just move on from it, because the longer you try to stick around, it just does you more harm. And if something works, stick to it. I mean, so that's the only thing. And there's no, like I said, there's no shortcut. It is, it's painful, but it's what it is.
Yes, we'd all love there to be a shortcut, but just by the way that markets work, the moment there would be a shortcut, that would get completely arbitraged kind of out of the market. So that's what
Yeah.
people ask as well, and they say, "Hey, what's this? If grab this system and then just if it beats the market, why doesn't everyone trade it?" It's like, well, because if everyone traded it, it would no longer beat the market, right? Systems would start to suffer slippage, which is going to be my next question. You said that um, so you're dealing with trade ideas and you're bringing up the symbols that trade ideas is telling you to look at, and you're putting those into your system. How often and by how much does that lag, do you think, hurt you, where it may have moved too far, or there may have been slippage or something like that? Is that something that's a problem frequently?
I do not find that, because even if something moved, you wait for pullbacks, and then my system will say best time to get back in. So it did not. Personally, for me, it was not a problem, even if it moved, unless it has hit the complete move that my system. Remember, I was telling you I calculate the percentage move. So if it
Hmm.
has completed the move, then I don't take risk. In fact, I'm happy you brought that question, because sometimes I see some symbols that still shows as buy, but I won't get into it because it's just risky for me. A friend of mine, just give you an example, just called, and I think the other day, and say, "Hey, buy Path, PATH." I don't even know what that stock does, but I looked into it, and I saw risk. I said, "No, it's gonna come down." And but he, and today, I believe it crashed again. So so I
Yeah.
am able to see risky ones from good ones. But yesterday I got into BENF, which just doubled overnight. So the system works. I mean, I'm so happy. Yeah, at the moment.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
there we
just
go.
showing path here for a second, but yeah, so it gapped up, and then yeah, you're just kind of looking at it and say, this is a bit too far. It's already done what it may do, and now, it looks
Yeah,
like it had earnings last night, and yeah, so it's not only the gap up has failed, but the gap up is reversed. So just yeah, ugly move. Definitely something you wouldn't want to be participating in too much right there.
right.
So that's interesting. So now, have you ever explored just the other side of it? So you're saying, you have a natural, or your system helps tell you this is kind of what's the potential of this name. Have you ever flipped that system on its head and said, well, I'm going to look for things that have already reached that potential and maybe beyond for a bit of a revision play, or is that part of it as well? Like, were you primarily, when you were doing this contest and the others, are you primarily trading with the short-term trend, or are you primarily kind of revision to the mean, right? Buy dips, sell rips, that kind of.
Yeah. So for the competition, it was surely short term, because it was you had to get into stocks that would move within 3 days, right?
Yes.
There's no point. So,
Yeah.
but my system, I mean, I saw. I'll tell you, I actually built this initially for the futures,
Hmm.
so I can do day trading and scalping with a smaller time frame. But again, it's multi time frame. But then I can have a larger picture and even much larger picture. So like I have three versions of it. um, so depending on when I get into, or my purpose, for example, TLT I bought some time back. It showed me that it would be long, so I'm still holding it. It's been like weeks now. So
So sorry,
but
TLT, the bond ETF.
TLT, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a treasury.
Yeah, that's been doing very well. Yeah. So that's interesting. So how do you so again, the contest, you have to be shorter term. Have you taken any of this stuff outside of contests where you're looking more at the stock market, and when, if you are, what's your primary time frame kind of in the real world, in real life trading? Are you still focusing on the day trading side of things, or giving it a little bit more room?
Um, Most of my trades are short term. I think it's a habit I picked from trading futures
Hmm.
because I trade during the day and I close. I'm done with it because early days I would go to sleep and come back. I'll see big loss because anything can happen
Yep.
because it's 24 by well, not seven, but at least six, right? So.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so it's a habit. So I prefer to take short moves. When I say short moves, throughout the day, I mean, one whole day, maybe even I might hold for a couple of days if I feel the market will move that way. But I tend to keep things short. So I prefer, like, I look at day trading as income trades. That's where my income is
Yes.
coming from.
Yep.
The other ones is more building the portfolios and yeah.
Yeah, and same way, right? Because if you're limiting yourself to a day, there's only so much you can make. The real kind of wealth creation or portfolio expansion generally is longer term type holds, but then right, you're scalping to kind of make up the difference. So that's interesting. And listen, it was again, it was a wild time. I remember seeing you on the board and a bunch of other people, and it was kind of going back and forth. That winner had a bit of a leap, so everyone's just kind of fighting to keep up. Now, going from real trading to going to competition trading. So say someone's not a system trader like you and they're just discretionary. Is there any kind of secret tips to someone who's again won a competition? I've seen you on the leaderboard a handful of times that you would tell someone that, hey, if you're looking to get into this kind of competition trading, this is a secret tip or something to give the folks.
Well, I'll say both sides of the coin. One side is, don't look at uh, the competition too much. If you're trying to test your trading method, just focus on that.
Hmm.
But at the same time, that pressure, and you're competing with some really smart people, like Lazar. He has won many competitions.
Hmm.
Um, so so at the same time, so the other side is where you're matching yourself against some very good traders. It's I enjoy it because the pressure is good. It's a good pressure.
Yep.
So there's two sides. One, at certain times you just need to forget all that and just focus on your trading. The other times, just the result will kind of it's good to know where you stand among everybody else. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, and if you spend too much time just looking at the leaderboard, then you're not spending
Yeah,
enough time trading. So, how
that,
much
that's
did
what
you?
happened to me. I was like on the third position on third day, and
Yeah,
then I was like, okay, I'm not going to make it. So I took a big bet and went to, I think, sixth position or something.
and right, that's the important thing to note is that yes, it's a competition and we're having fun and all of that, but yeah, you do have to treat it seriously in some respects, right? It could be, like you mentioned, that there's two ways to look at this. There is, I'm going to, trade. I'm gonna teach this like or treat it like a game solely, and just try to trade to win. Again, it's fine. You can do that if you want. There's nothing we can do to stop you. But where I think, and one of the reasons that I wanted to bring you back is because what I thought was super fascinating that you were doing is you'd kind of mentioned this that you were transitioning away from an instrument that you've been trading for a long time and it was making sense. And you were using these competitions as almost excuses to, maybe spend a little bit more time paper trading that paper trading is no fun if you're just paper trading for paper trading's sake. But expanding out your ideas and saying, "Hey, this is something that I definitely want to explore." And by doing that, you're discovering new things here or there. That yes, your system does seem to work for stocks, and with a couple tweaks, it seems to work for stocks on the short side, and all of the different things that you can go from it. So, it ideally it's both. Ideally, you have a little bit of fun in the competition and you learn something. Um, when it comes to taking these systems and going live with them, is there any sort of process you recommend people do there? For example, I know when I go from back testing to paper trading to real trading with a system, I always just start very, very small. Like, so small that if, the stock goes to 1 million and I'm short, it's fine. Do you have um, any tips on how to like incrementally get, better and better in your system as things go on?
Yeah, so with me, three competitions, right? So, and I fairly did well for all the three. So my confidence in trading stocks has gone up.
Hmm.
So since then, I've been like testing the model with actual stocks. So until then, I wasn't really buying a lot of stocks, but now on a daily basis, I'm buying and or selling stocks. But I limit my exposure. I'm right now only selling like 100 stocks, no matter what the price is, just as a model and just sticking to it. And once I have series of winnings, I mean, one thing with me was always, like this is when I was trading currency way back. I would make like 10%, then next day I would lose 20%. I mean, there
Yeah.
was no system to it. Then I realized, you know what? As long as you're winning, even if $1, you're a winner. So my
Hmm.
focus became consistency. So what I'm trying to see in anything that I do is consistency. If I can win maybe 100 wins, then I'll start increasing my risk. So that's why I was again going back to my 100% win rate. I mean, that was something I was really excited about. Yeah.
Yeah, because especially, as we talked about day trading being a more, you're looking at it more as income. That win rate and that consistency is super important, for the wealth creation or the portfolio expansion side of things. It's okay to, just have one that you hit out of the park every now and then, because that will really pad the bottom line. But you're right, when it comes to kind of income driven trading, that consistency is key, because you want to be able that you're pulling it out. And again, just like I was saying, it makes perfect sense. You got to start small, and then you kind of have to build it from there. So, when you're building it, is it a goal driven? So, like you said, you're trading 100 shares right now. What is it that you're looking for to say, okay, maybe it's time to scale up to 150 shares a trade or 200 shares a trade? Is it a numerical thing, or is it a number of a period of time that you're consistent? What is it that you're looking for?
So, generally in futures, my win rate is, I would say, maybe 50, 60 trades I make. Maybe I may have one or two loss. So I've
Mhm.
got to that good in futures. I'm trying to get to that similar goal with stocks. Once I see that's happening, then that's when I will start betting more.
Yeah, that's good. And it makes sense. A numeric, right? A numeric goal makes sense, because what I've seen from traders a lot is maybe they have 5, 6 trades winning in a row, and then that sixth trade, they're like, well, I'm just gonna, quadruple up my size, and of course that sixth trade, that's the one that kind of blows everyone out. So listen, Paul,
In
thanks.
fact,
Yeah,
something I've learned is
yeah.
when you have more winning trades, that's when you have to be more careful. Because that's when you start relaxing and you let your guards down. You don't look at things you're supposed to. And I've been there many times and I've learned my lesson.
I couldn't agree more. That it's funny that one of my old trading mentors always say that new and losing traders get very, very nervous when they are losing money, right? They're getting very, they you give them 5 losers in a row, they get very, very nervous. Seasoned traders get very, very nervous when they're making money. There becomes a period of time where, if I'm on my 20th trade that's a winner, I am getting terrified. Or if every day this month, and we're nearing the end of the month, I made money, I'm starting to get nervous. So you're right, as you get into it a little bit more, it becomes okay, it's time to kind of, as opposed to branching it up when you're doing well, it's time to scale it back, because it's a game of probabilities, right? Your system can be
Mhm.
amazing, but
Yeah.
sometimes you're gonna
It's
lose,
it's
right?
just the way the industry. I mean, it's just the way the system is. Because morning you're fresh. You're you look at everything, and then as you win, you're not as fresh, and your mind
Mhm.
is not as fresh. And like today, I mean, I can still sit and trade, but no, I won't do it. Even though the market is tempting, because
Yeah.
I know I'll go and do something stupid.
No. Good words of advice. So listen, thanks for coming back. Thanks for continuing to participate in the competitions. I think these follow ups are fantastic for newer traders. As somebody who you're not new to trading, but you're new to trading stocks and kind of seeing this journey of just for other traders who maybe a lot of them trade cryptocurrencies or forex or futures or whatever, and they're trying to expand out even amongst time frames. A investor may say, okay, I want to do the little income trading of day trading and things like that. I think it's awesome to share your journey. I appreciate having you out. And are you going to compete in the next competition when we
Oh
do
yeah,
one?
absolutely. I enjoy it.
Good.
I really enjoy it, and thank you for doing it. And that's why I sent you that email.
Yes.
Thanking you. Yeah, always appreciative.
We
Because I,
love
I
the
I can imagine the amount of effort that goes into it.
Yes,
So
it's a lot of work, but yeah, we love the positive feedback, right? Our goal is obviously to help traders learn while keeping it interesting and not risking their own money. And we think the competitions are doing a great job at that. So again, thanks for I hope maybe I'll be chatting with you again next time.
all right, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.